So inclusive teaching is very much about raising awareness. It is about opening that communication and understanding the diverse student body that you might have, whether that be in a module, in a school, college, or indeed university, and understanding what measures can be taken to support the diverse range of students that you may have. So this might be from a range of thinking about assessment, thinking about when certain sessions are timetabled, and understanding the different needs of the student population. Part of that, again, is around communication. It's around building the awareness for all of the staff. So we're undertaking a lot of CPD activity at Liverpool Business School, a lot of mentoring, so sort of two-way mentoring, matching leaders, senior leaders, program leaders with students that can provide a diverse view and a student view on how things might be operating on the ground, so to speak. We have been opening up a large dialogue with our schools, with our stakeholder groups from across Liverpool City region, to really get an understanding of their lived experience, so that we can build a broader awareness of the challenges that they may or may not be affecting. So, for example, we have a number of students that are participating in part-time work or have caring responsibilities and may not have time access or access to the additional activities that we might undertake, particularly when we think about co-creation of the curricula. So if we're holding meetings, whether it be student fora, student committees that are bringing in student voice, we need to make sure that they are operated at a time and in a space that allow for that inclusion and access, so that we are bringing in the voice from that wide, diverse range of student bodies.
So in terms of inclusivity, people tend to think of some standard sort of government definition. To me, inclusivity is a student who comes in the room and does not feel comfortable. And that could be any type of students. It's not within the bounds of race or gender or anything like that. Students enter the room as human beings. They need to be respected as such, and so do I, right? So inclusivity means those students that are usually sitting at the back that are nervous when they come in because they haven't been to university. Nobody in their family has been to university before, and they're unsure about how to manage themselves, how to, just moving from one room to the other, it becomes confusing to them. And the language that we use in university, our expectations. So it's really trying to make sure that those students are included. You ask them questions, ask them to do something, right? Include them in groups and make sure that we don't have groups where everybody knows everybody and they went to school together, etc. We've done focus groups looking at students that feel alienated, and really it is up to us as teachers to do a little bit more to help the socialization in those very early times that students come into our class.
We do quite a lot. So we have in my university, we have something called the Inclusive Practice Toolkit, which covers teaching and learning and assessment and the whole works. There are all sorts of guides and checklists in there to check that your practice is inclusive. As ever, you don't really know if something is not inclusive until somebody points out to you that they felt excluded. We're doing a lot of work around valuing the individual voice and valuing different perspectives. I think beneath that is a lot of work to be done around confidence, and I'm sure you're going to hear that from lots of people. How do you develop student confidence so that, one, they feel they can contribute their voice, and two, they think that that voice matters and will be heard. I think that's quite a lot of the inclusivity piece, is that students don't think they're going to be heard. I'm doing quite a lot of work around belonging as well. I think some students have imposter syndrome and it's not warranted, because when you get beneath it, they've all got it. No matter how confident we are, no matter what our background, when we move into a new environment, part of us thinks, do I fit here? And I think if we can unearth that and show that we all, to some extent, feel a sense of uneasiness and do I belong? And so trying to do things to help students to feel as if they belong is one of the key things that we're doing around inclusivity.
We have students from a wide variety of different backgrounds, of different nationalities and of different cultures, and we've got to make sure that we take an inclusive approach. So in our school we have a range of activities and programs designed to foster inclusivity. So pre-pandemic we already had a policy and approach around inclusive delivery of teaching, and we had a policy around inclusivity in our virtual learning environment. What the pandemic has done is really brought that to the forefront, and so we make sure that inclusivity is at the heart of our activities, whether that's ensuring that we caption chunked videos, whether that's in ensuring that our materials are accessible to students with particular disabilities. This is very, very important. But also we've started a number of other new projects and initiatives recently. So we have a large-scale decolonising the curriculum project running in our school, and that's a significant project with also a lot of student involvement. So that means that students are right at the heart of the project, and this is starting to inform our practice, and it's starting to prompt change across the school. And it's a key project for inclusivity moving forward.
The business school community in the UK is an enormous community of students. It's one of the largest of any of the disciplines in any UK university. It also attracts a large number of international students and does rather well at attracting students from a range of diverse backgrounds into study business. That means that by default we're actually used to dealing with people from a variety of different backgrounds and thinking about inclusivity and diversity in what we do. But there's a whole range of things that the business school community can do better yet to further enhance that work around, for example, thinking about the kinds of examples that we use in case study material and so on. And I'm a big believer that if you can't see role models and examples that relate to you, it places an artificial distance between you, the learner, and the learning experience, because the examples maybe don't fit with your religious beliefs, or they don't fit with the kind of brands or products or services that you recognise from your community. And so making those learning resources as diverse as our student community is a thing which I think our academic staff are working hard to do over time, and I think we do quite well.
So there's a few things that we put in place across the school, and obviously in my module, and that was a huge investment in things like captions and pre-recorded. But actually it's trying to think, how do we ensure that our curriculum reflects all of our students? So one of the examples to really foster inclusive education was to give a great range of different cases and real life briefs that my students work with. So I had about 7, 8 client briefs, but all with a specific focus on corporate social responsibility or inclusion and diversity. So that was whether it be Burberry or whether it be Metro Bank or whether it be kind of YouGov, but focused on different things that the students could really show different strengths with. I suppose the second one was just the variety of cases and examples that I was hoping to use. So we use a number of different providers, but it was important for me to ensure that the cases reflected the Global South. They moved away particularly from just the kind of white men of the North America and the UK, and actually had Africa and India and East Asia represented, but also encouraging students to bring their own cases and examples, from their own local context, things that they could relate to. One thing we also did, and that was myself as a module leader, but also across the faculty, was quite a useful module checklist in terms of inclusive education, just as a prompt, just to think, okay, have I really reflected all my students in my materials? Have I ensured that everything was just loaded up early, because I didn't know when students were going to be engaging with their materials. It wasn't all 9 o'clock in the morning, it was probably 3 o'clock in the morning at some point. I think being able to be really flexible as well with the assessments, that was something that really, I think, has been a catalyst for us to be able to think, okay, you don't all have to sit in the same room at the same time doing this thing. Actually, it can be kind of a work around your life as well. So I think there's a number of different areas that we tried to capture in a checklist, and I've kind of followed through in my module, and just being able to ensure that students feel that they can bring their examples, their voice, and their personality, I think, to the module and reflect that. With a diversity of students, you have to have a diversity of curriculum and teaching assessment methods, and I think it was important for us to be able to reflect that. And I think actually the pandemic really highlighted some of the challenges that many of our students have, but all the different identities that they have as well that don't necessarily kind of come to the fore. So as I suppose as a module lead, being able to have I said that diversity of cases, of examples where our students could see themselves in that situation. I think being able to provide time in and amongst all the learning and teaching that allowed students to come and ask questions that perhaps they weren't able to in particular sessions, I think was certainly important.
So the pandemic, as I said earlier, has forced us to think a little bit about how we include different kinds of learning need. Auto-captioning has been a real breakthrough for a whole variety of different kinds of students, but also the ability to package up little bits of learning, so rather than the whole curriculum, thinking about how you deliver little segments of learning in bite-sized chunks that you can piece together in different recipes, as it were, as part of an educational process, allows learners to engage in different ways, sometimes passively consuming, sometimes reading, sometimes applying, using a variety of different kinds of assessment methods to both formatively and summatively assess how that learning has been absorbed by the student community. Those are things which are much, much more inclusive, and actually historically I think we would have said that they were really the reserve of people who had additional support needs around their learning, but we've discovered that they're actually really useful to almost all of our students, benefiting from some aspect of that flexibility. So the ability to work synchronously and asynchronously allows learners to learn at their own pace without any of the social pressure around that, and I think our academic staff have really picked up on that and embedded that in the curriculum designs that we use. So we think carefully about the learning objectives for the course or module, and how we deliver that is much more flexible and nuanced than the single broad brush standard lectures and end of course assessment that might have characterised learning a few decades ago.
We are trying to use social media a lot more. We are trying to create opportunities when we're actually trying to seek different voices, rather than the bite-sized content might be online. For that application of knowledge to really work, you have to hear the different perspectives. So we're trying to create the case for why your perspective, your voice, which is different to mine, is really important. So that's one of the things we're doing around trying to include underrepresented groups in the work that we're doing. We do a lot of work tracking the data. So we try to see, well, what kind of activities have traditionally got less of the mix of students in those activities to what we know the demographic of our students is. And it's not surprising when you start looking at data like that, commuter students are often missing from a lot of extracurricular work. So that makes us then go and look at our timetables and think, well, where are we positioning this? Are we asking students to travel twice? Are we asking them to travel once? So it's trying to understand which voices are missing so that you know which strategy is the best one to try and get them there. And there isn't one answer, it's multiple answers based on what the activity actually is that you think students are underrepresented in.
I think one of the things that's worked is bringing students together, as peers, and supporting each other. So there may well be mature students that have been struggling, and so being able to actually pair them with another mature student, just so they're not alone, I think has been really helpful. But also a use of our alumni, and I would say that's been really important. Particularly from our students that are from Black and Asian minority ethnic groups, having an alumni that's gone through it, that's experienced it, that can say, yeah, that was quite normal. I experienced that, but I've come out the other end. I think it's been really reassuring for our students. So I think both at a module level, or program level, or course level, just being able to have that representation has been able to really support students. And I would say one of the things that really was helpful was just the relaxation of having students to keep explaining their lives to me, and being able to have a very kind of open, flexible design as a default was absolutely key, rather than having to expect students to disclose something or explain something. And I think being able to perhaps ask less searching questions and just accepting a little bit more, I'd hope that represents my module as well as others across the school.
For me, inclusivity is making sure that in the tutorial space is a safe space, and I state it right at the beginning. That whatever's said in the room stays in the room. Whatever we do, however silly we might look doing our presentation or talking, or the comments that we made, stay in that room. So those students that would not normally speak up feel that they can. So that's kind of how I personally conduct my classes, to make sure that every student feels that they are able to contribute.
The whole area of being inclusive and looking at the diverse needs of students, again, happens at a very early stage in programme and module development. But maybe quite an interesting example over the last couple of years has been around the upskilling area, where we have been targeting those hard to reach communities and hard to reach higher education learners, to look at how we can be as inclusive as possible and support that upskilling agenda, to ensure that we have very diverse student groups, but also that employers have that diverse pool of talent as well that they all really need at the moment, particularly for a future of work agenda.